Man, the last couple of days have been tough. Um, the shit part though is that it's literally in my head. So I feel like ugh. Okay, the biggest theme in the last few days has just been self judgment and criticism and shit like that. Um, Anyone who's familiar with Brene Brown's work kind of knows what's going on there. If you're not familiar with Brene Brown's work, highly recommend you get yourself acquainted. So, yeah. Anyway, so what was this? Is the Saturday, I think. Yeah, something like that. Oh, is it? Yeah, I think so. Sunday, Saturday. Yeah, that's right. So no, so I woke up and I think I'm just gonna have to start gymming through the week instead of having the weekends off. That was my plan. I mean, during the weekdays, I keep going every day. But the weekends kind of just seem like a bit of a chill day. There's no reason why I can't. Although I'll be honest, I was so bloody exhausted. So anyway, the funny thing is like talking about like affirmations and shit is that to me like, affirmations is more about just setting the intention for, how you want to show up during the day. That's kind of how I see it. So a little bit of a product placement. Cold brew by Blacklist. Blacklist do our coffee supply, and I got this last time we were in Perth. Had a meeting with them, and yeah. Anyway, gonna give it a punt. We might start doing canned cold brew instead of bottled cold brew. We'll see. Tastes like cold brew. So we, yeah. So like, what I kind of notice is that it's easy to forget the, I guess, day-to-day intentions. Well, I don't know. I'm finding this. It's easy to forget the day-to-day intentions of how I kind of want to show up in the world and shit. And I guess the affirmations kind of just keep like realigning those intentions, which is really good. And the days that I don't, which is like sad day, the days that I don't do that is I find myself kind of dropping the ball quite a lot, and I'm not as engaged and not as present and get more distracted and all that sort of hoo-ha. So anyway, so when yeah, so my morning ended up just being a bit of a waste, and I'm just really conscious that it's easy to maintain the momentum than it is to gain it, and when you've got it, you keep moving. And maybe that's just no, it is a thing. Yeah, the activation energy is a thing. But yeah, anyway, I guess if there's a good enough reason, then it's not that bad. Anyway, yeah, I started getting pretty shitty actually. Saturday was shit. Oh yeah. There's kind of times where I just find myself, I feel like I should be a lot further ahead in areas of life than I am, and it's hard to not get really self-critical about that. Yeah. So, so and the funny thing is, when I feel really shitty and really edgy, then I kind of like project that a little bit. And I've just learned, you know what, just take some time, just don't be a prick, hold your thoughts because it'll pass. And, or specifically speak to more, okay, but be more specific. I've learned to not just put my shit on back. And that's been really important. Like Way of Superior Man, for those who are familiar with that, I think it's a great resource, especially for men. And one of the things that it talks about in there is like let your wife be your wife. Let her be your like your. This, I'm probably going to butcher it, but this is how I interpret it and remember it. Let her have the freedom to be like free and like you're the masculine one. Just do the masculine shit. Don't expect her to try and have to be masculine, with respect to like the areas in life where there's like decision making, and again, like I'm butchering this because it doesn't mean that women don't make decisions. It doesn't mean Beck doesn't make decisions, but it means that when it comes to taking the hard, making the hard call and stuff, is that don't put her in a position where she has to do that. No, do that. Let her be free enough to be present with the kids and enjoy and ooze that love and like. And what I've found is that since I've adopted that, I guess mentality and philosophy is that I come home and I've just got I'm greeted with this just joy, like radiant, like just joy, and I love it. It's so beautiful. I love it. So whereas the times when I'm like shitty at Beck for, not, I don't know, insert anything, is that I kind of expect too much of her and I put all this pressure on her that doesn't really benefit her really. Yeah, and it doesn't. And I think a big part of it is you can lead a horse to water, but even actually no, I'll get to that later. What I was going to say is Sunday she asked me this question. Whatever. No, I'll talk about that on the next episode. But the consequence of this, the reason I'm bringing all this up in the first place, and the thing is, this doesn't abdicate Beck from any sort of decision making or choosing direction, and none of that. That's not the thing. She's very good about knowing what she wants and then going about and getting it. So it's not that. I'm probably doing a really bad job of explaining this, but nonetheless, I'm just going to move on. So I started getting really shitty because I realized like so much of my time is spent like tidying the house and the stuff, and I feel like Beck could probably do more around the house, and the funny thing is I hear this, like it's a similar sort of gripe from I guess all couples, and so that's where I'm like, okay, well, I'm no orphan here. I guess if everyone's got the same problem, is it really a problem, or if it is, it's a collective issue then, so then what's the real cause rather than any one individual being the problem. In this case, obviously, Beck's not the problem in our relationship if it's a consistent pattern across all relationships, and so, and then the reason that it's giving me the shits is because like obviously I've got a home office, right, and I'm wanting to focus more intently on the business, but I'm feeling like I just can't get a clean run on the things I need because other areas of my life also require active input, like. And when I think around like the end of my life and I look back, the number one, Regrets of the Dying, great book, everyone should read it. And the first thing everybody says is, I don't want to, I regret not spending more time with my family. Even speaking with Jacob and Rochelle, they were saying, we wish we made more time for holidays and spent more time as a family experiencing things together. And I'm like, that's interesting. Heard someone say you've got 18 summers with your kids. That's it, so... And they're gone. And what's more is that as well, there's another study that was saying that you spend something like 95 or 98% of your face-to-face time with your children up until when they leave home. And then after they've left home, you see them a couple times a year. And even that, like, it's not like you're spending weeks on end with each other. It might be a few weekends at best. Like, so, so I'm really intentional about making sure that I'm not sacrificing these formative years with my kids and sacrificing those years on the altar of business success because that's what society expects that we should have. The hard part is it's really fucking hard to not judge myself for that either. Like, yeah, fuck, it's hard to find the balance a bit, eh? Yeah. I mean, at this point, I'm just looking through my notes on the day. Like, Diary of a CEO, right? It came up on my feed, which is another thing. Fuck Facebook. I want to get rid of that shit for sure. It came up on my feed, Steve Bartlett, and he was interviewing some sort of like British comedian, Ramesh, but I'm not even bother trying to pronounce that last name. Indian comedian. And this guy was saying, he's like, man, I feel like it's such a balance to try and, get harmony across all these different areas of life to maintain the peace of mind, and I'm like, yeah, fuck, I feel that. Like, And then also there was another excerpt from an interview that he had with Chris Bumstead, I think his name is, like the bodybuilder guy. And and so here's this guy Ramesh, the comedian. He's saying, like, like for him, he needs to maintain this and maintain that, rah 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 rah. And then I've got Chris talking about how he's trying to balance everything and realizing that it's a fool's errand to keep everything together. And I'm like, oh fuck, what do you do? Like, and I just feel at the moment like I'm wanting to focus on the growth of the business, but also I'm aware, and maybe I'm just fucking stupid with this, because I feel like I've got I've got a 2-month-old newborn. He's just gone 2 months. My eldest is 6, and I've got four kids, including her, and I'm still learning so much about business. Jesus, like, building systems and all that. Yeah, and learning about leadership and not wanting to like micromanage my guys, but then wanting to give them, wanting better standards and, and then empowering them, and then, just all this. And I'm just going, what the fuck? I don't know. And then I compare like myself to others. Yeah, and that's probably the problem. But nonetheless, I look at like mates of ours that are in business or going into business, and I'm just like, fuck, you just have it sorted. Like, yeah, I don't know. And maybe it is just the grass is greener. There's this other mate of ours, really like top shelf bloke. And his business is like, I mean, he's been in business longer than us, but his business is leagues ahead of where we are, for good reason. Like, but hasn't got kids in the mix. He's someone who's pretty disciplined for the most part. Well, for the most, very disciplined actually. And I'm looking at it, I'm just like, fucking hell. And then when I think about it, I'm like, well, you know what? If for the last 10 years I was able to be solely dedicated to propaganda, even for the last 3 years, 5 years, let's just say the last 5 years. Well, we're in our 4th year now, right? So, last 4 years, learning this stuff without, and I'm not going to say that it's a distraction or a burden or anything like that, right? But it's a tension and a balance. And I think actually tension, I think, is a really good word, because the tension is, I've got one thing that pulls from the other. Is that a right way to describe that? I think so. And I don't feel like it's necessarily, I don't think tension's particularly like right or wrong. I feel like it's neutral. So, yeah. Anyway, so I look at like these mates of ours around us, and I'm just like, fuck yous, they've got it sorted. Like investments, properties, like, all these like skill sets and understandings and knowledge and all this. And I'm like, here I am circling around the fucking mountain again. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, that's kind of where I was. And it just feels like it's frustrating, because it feels like these other, like these either people I read about or people in my network that are, a bit further ahead than us, or even those in our network that are way further ahead than us. I look at it, I'm just like, fuck, like what's the magic? What's the magic bit? What's the bit that I don't have? What is that? I can't fucking work it out. I don't know. It just feels like, I don't know, if like others have something that I don't. Yeah, I think part of it just goes, why bother? Like, I'm always someone who, I'm like, well, but why is it that way? Why do I want that? What's the actual purpose behind this, rather than just being like, yeah, I want to earn fucking, X amount of millions or whatever. Just going, yeah, but like, why? What's the purpose? And then I just think, fuck it, just do it. Just go, you know what, not throw caution to the wind, that's not the case, but, stop trying to actually understand yourself and just go make shitloads of money. Yeah, you want the boat, go buy the fucking boat. You want the art, buy the art. Get to the point that you can do that shit. But then I just end up finding myself, I'm like, but why? What's the point? Oh, because you want to have a good life. Okay, cool. My life's pretty good. But at the same time, like, I still want all that shit. I still want to strive for more. And maybe I'm just like, I've bought into this like insatiable consumer society. I don't know. It's doing my head in at the minute anyway. Yeah. So anyway, what ended up happening was, after I was like being just a mopey shit in the morning, Beck was pretty accommodating, but at the same time was a bit like, well, shit, like, I don't know how to say this right. It's almost like she was shitty that I was down, like not in like a fuck you way, but I think it's just like she didn't really know she didn't know what was going on, firstly, and it took me a while to work out what was happening. And I think that, when you can see there's a problem and you're wanting to change it and you don't know how, then that can express in frustration. And she wasn't overtly frustrated as much as it was just like, it's going to sound really petty, but like when Beck's frustrated, she like moves in a certain way. And it's like, sure, she might not be explicit around it, but you can kind of pick up what's going on, what she's trying to communicate through body language and that. Anyway, so it wasn't lost on me. Yeah. So anyway, Beck shot off to Bunnings. They wanted to finish building this little like fairy floss cart for the girls, and then what they're going to do with this fairy floss cart is they're going to rent it out for events. So, and again, this is the girls have paid for all this. They've paid for all the materials, and and obviously we've helped them. Like, I've helped them cut the ply and all that sort of stuff. So, but they've this is their cart. They've put the effort in, and where they don't have the skills to do it, then Beck and I have helped. So, we were just waiting on some stuff to rock up for that. So Beck went down to Bunnings and got the paint. And she came back, and we did a bit of they were painting out the front, and then I ended up heading into Bunnings had to go pick up some brackets and stuff for the cart, and I found myself just kind of parked in the back of Bunnings. Like, I mean, I've got a rule: I always go to the closest first, and usually I get a park, right? This time I didn't even notice it. Hey, I was just like, just doing what I wanted to do at the moment. And I went and parked in the back of Bunnings, and right in the middle, in between two cars, and there was a car in front of me, and cars there, and I parked right in there so no one could see me. And I just sat on my phone. I was just scrolling, probably like 15 minutes. And I just remember thinking to myself, I was just like, why am I hiding? And then I clicked. I was like, oh wow, I'm hiding. And if there's one thing I know about hiding is that it's pretty emblematic of shame. And again, this goes back to the whole Brene Brown thing. Like, those who have listened to Brene Brown or read her books and everything else, she's so great. And she even like when she's speaking and writing and you're listening to her books and stuff, she sounds like your auntie, and she's so cool. So yeah, so she talks a lot about shame. And how when you feel ashamed, you don't want people to see you. You want to hide. Pro tip for parents: when your kids are covering their face and they don't want to be seen, that's shame. So the difference between shame and guilt or embarrassment is, or maybe embarrassment is a subsection of shame. I'm not really sure, but I know for guilt is I've done something. Shame is I'm someone who does things. And so I realized that. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, here I am in a position where I'm feeling ashamed, right? And when even just that realization, like, I remember someone saying, I can't remember who the quote is, but it's something like the beginning of understanding is to label things correctly, or describe something like that. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, I understand what's happening now. Okay. And there's this thing, I've talked about working with this mindset coach, Nero, for quite some time. And one of the things that came up with me was, sorry, I'm just trying to find, there it is. I was just shared this with a friend. I'm not sure if this is necessarily my life's meaning, because that's such a massive statement, but it's certainly something that keeps coming up, and I feel like it's something that I am working on. Is that this is the phrase, and it resonates with me. It might not resonate with others, but it certainly resonates with me. Is that the meaning of my life is to unshackle myself from my own expectations and to gain clarity and an alignment, so that I can feel peace and safety in belonging. And yeah, it sounds very odd, but the dead set is that, like, and the inverse of that is that I feel unfulfilled in any aspect of my life where I have a high expectation of self. Then when I have that, then I lack clarity and I lack alignment. And and so one of the things I realize is whenever I'm like really shitty at myself, or, I've got, and it doesn't mean that you're not like critical of your behavior. That's not the case at all. It doesn't mean that it stops you from striving at all, but it stops you from striving in the wrong direction or for arbitrary reason. And what I've found is that, like, whenever I am feeling like reclusive or like ashamed of, not being where I want to be or whatever, that letting go of those expectations and not even trying to identify where they've come from, that's a conversation for another time, but just being able to let go of that shit and just be like, all right, you're like, Billy, you're not fucked. Like, it's not even a comparison thing. It's just like, hey, you're not fucked, dude. And be able to just be like, and not hate myself, and actually start, I'm convinced everything comes back to self-love. Yeah, so that was a cool little realization. And I kind of came back, and I was talking with Beck, and by this time the kids were, they had just had a nap, or they were in bed, and I was doing the dishes and talking with Beck about it. And Beck's so great. And I think, like, I'm more than happy to talk with Beck about this sort of stuff once I actually have worked out what's going on. Prior to that, I've got a network of men who I lean on. I'd say my mum's probably the exception to the rule. I feel like everyone's mum's the exception to the rule there. But yeah, so it was cool, like, being able to talk it through with Beck, and having someone to, like, someone who knows me really intimately, and I was able to be like, yo, this is what I just realized is going on in my head. Do I've been such a mopey shit? Like, I'm really sorry. And yeah, and just, and the thing that came up is, it's like, I love our network of friends, but we're at the stage in our lives where we're developing the foundation and the skills to build, I guess I'm going to go as far as saying build greatness from, right? And and like, a lot of our friends have like real nice houses, and drive nicer cars, and not necessarily say that I necessarily like want to spend 200 grand on cars, but they've got like it's just like everything else just is in order, more in order, nicer, and meanwhile, we're leveraging shit again. And it's like, fucking hell, like, it'd be nice if there's a surplus soon and not more debt. That'd be cool. Yeah. And so, yeah, so anyway, I was saying to Becca, it's like, look, and for most people, sure, they're, like, everyone who looks like they've got money usually don't. Usually it's just debt up to the max. But you know, like we speak pretty candidly with some of our friends, and we're just like, fuck, like we know you guys got money, and it's not from a judgmental thing. It's just like, well done, like that's cool. Like fuck, it'd be good as well. That'd be nice. Wouldn't mind that. And like we don't think anything less of them or anything like that. It's not the case at all. And in fact, like it's really cool to have mates who are succeeding, you know, and who that we get to rub shoulders with, and we're on the journey together. Like that's really cool. Yeah, but fucking hell, hang on, what was I saying? Oh yeah, yeah. You know, so I'm looking at like everyone else's position, and then I'm looking at our position. I'm like, there's so much shit to do in our house. Our windows are fucked, and we need to replace them, and we don't have the money for it. Like, you know, we did our bathroom reno, and that blew way the fuck over budget. We've got like, just like, even just keeping on top of the house, like, and it's just like, oh, yeah, yeah. Anyway, whatever. Whinge, 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 bitch, 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 bitch. And in the end, I'm just like, yeah, but fucking hell, like I've got it real good too, you know, and I think it's also being conscious of the fact that, ugh, like when I think about it, it's so petty. It is wild petty. It's crazy. Yeah. Anyway, and I know that like next week, I'll not even next week. Like tomorrow, I'll be back on my horse, and it's whatever. I think part of the frustration is that it's like, okay, here's this thing that I'm striving for, like this outcome that I'm wanting, and it seems like it just comes really easy to others. Yeah, and I feel like the conversation is, well, like, what's wrong with me? Like, what am I doing wrong? Like, how am I fucking up? I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, so anyway, one of the biggest things I've learned is that by letting go of my expectations on how things should play out, like what my life should look like, then I'm actually in a lot better position to think clearer, to be present, to be able to make better decisions and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, so after that, kind of talking with Beck about it and stuff, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to come home. I'm going to take a nap. So I went home and had a nap. I can't remember how long it was for. It wasn't massive. I think it was like maybe 40 minutes or whatever. You know, and then I just kind of let go of all that shit from earlier. And I just spent time with the kids. And man, they loved it. You know, and then in the evening, yeah, Beck and I, she was like, you know, do you want to have a bath? I was like, I'll have a bath with you. So we jumped in the bath, and we just sat and talked. It must have been for about a good hour and a bit, eh? Yeah. She's such a good woman. Yeah. Yeah, she says to me, she's like, what do you want to see more from me? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, sure, everyone can improve. Absolutely. Like, there's no two ways about it. I think that if you've made it, game over. Yeah, so, but I just said to her, I was like, babe, like, there's no point me telling you what I want if it's not what you want. Like, there's plenty of ways that everyone can improve, you know, but it's not about me. And I'm not going to say to you, like, I'm not going to cast judgment on you and say, oh, you should do this, this, and this. I was like, if anything, like, being more health and fitness conscious, which you're already doing, so sweet, you know? And I was like, cool, like, we're on that journey. I'm happy with that. Happy days. So that was, yeah, it was cool. I enjoyed that. Yeah, we just had, yeah, it was just really nice. Like, you know, the thing with the commonality with our relationship is if we're at odds with each other, we usually need to spend more time together. And not to say we're necessarily at odds with each other, but it definitely did us some good just hanging out. So that's that. Saturday.